Welcome back to OpenLine, talking with Tim Takis, elder law attorney, about all kinds of things. We have some people on the phone here. Let's go to the phones here. Okay. People want to ask some questions. Let's go to Ann. Hello, Ann.
Hi.
What's on your mind?
I have a will to leave my house to my daughter, and I'm just wondering if there's some way I can keep this house from being taken by the government maybe at the end. I don't know.
Okay.
Now, what do you mean? To cover the cost of nursing home care?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. You know, and it's interesting that you know, I mean, so Ann calls, and we hear that a lot from our clients and our people that come into the office. Like this morning, we had a young lady, and I call her young lady because she's younger than I am, but she's 38, and her mother came in who's 64, and and her daughter is on disability, and she's also on TennCare because she got disabled in a younger age. Well, the daughter inherited a house, but it hasn't been titled in her name yet. Okay. And so the mother and daughter were having a question about, well, if we put the house in my name, because she's on TennCare, are they going to take the house? I mean, there's that perception out there that don't own anything, and this property, this house that she inherited is going to come to her, and it's titled in her name, then that just means that the state, they're going to take it. The government, right. the government's going to take it. Mm-hmm. Because obviously she's 38. She needs a place to live, and her 9-year-old daughter needs a place to live. And I said, the best thing for you to do is to own that house, because the government doesn't take houses. That's one of the things that the government says that you can have. Even if if you're on Social Security, supplemental security income or TennCare, they say you can have a house.
Right.
And here she is living at home, and she needs a place to live, and so have a house. I mean, there's that perception out there that I wish, that's why that's why I like being on here. One of the reasons why, because a lot of people have those impressions that, that like Ann says, if I go into the nursing home, they're going to take the house. And it's like, for one, is the likelihood of her being in a nursing home is like not really that high. And second is that most people don't wake up today and then wind up in the nursing home because they have a chance to plan for it.
So how does that get started? You're right, I've heard that before too. So here's someone calling and saying, are they going to take the house? Is there some version of that would lead to people to believe that this may happen?
Well, sure, because what happens is that when people are in the nursing home and they're drawing Medicaid benefits to pay the nursing home, and they're living and they have a house, the government says, well, we're not going to make you sell the house, because if you ever want to return home or get better, we want you to have a place to live.
Right.
But once you're dead, then you don't need the house anymore, and we've paid out maybe sometimes several hundreds of thousands of dollars for your care, and in return for us paying for your nursing home care and letting you keep the house, you give up the right to say what happens to it when you're gone. Does that make sense?
So, yeah, right. Then they would come.
Right, because they're saying is, well, we let you keep the house during your lifetime. We didn't make you sell it and pay the nursing home, but when you're dead, you don't need it anymore. And people say, well, I don't like that. And it's like, well, I understand that. That because our natural impulse is, if we have anything left on this earth, we want to leave it to somebody else if we can. And you don't, and that just sort of goes against the whole grain of our way of thinking. And so
then, all right, and I'll take calls after this. I'm going to move on to the next call.
Sure.
But I'm interested in that, because so then Ann is saying, how do I protect that? How do I keep that from happening? Right.
And one is that like we talked about before, is if she doesn't have a house, they can't take they can't recoup out of her estate when she dies.
Right.
But that means that puts her in a position of, well, do I transfer the house to my daughter or my children? Do I transfer it to a trust and wait a 5-year look-back period? So there are consequences, for doing those sorts of things, which are not simple. Like you said, it's not easy because the focus is, like you said, is I want to leave my house to my kids, but I'm not done with it yet.
Right. So that's why you need to talk these things through.
Talk these things through as to what the right ways to do it.
Well, let's go to Mike. Hello, Mike.
Yes.
What's on your mind?
My first wife passed away in 1998.
Okay.
I went to Tim Takis, and he drew a power of attorney, the will, the whole 9 yards. And I divorced her after 5 years. Should I come to you again to the will? She was not, the second wife was not mentioned in the will at all.
Yeah, in those situations where, let's say, as Mike says, okay, I did some work for him, and I'm glad.
I'm not sure how that call was going to go.
I wasn't either, but I mean, it's so far so good.
So yes, that's good.
Fortunately, we have control over the.
Yes, we do. Yes. But no, Mike.
No, Mike that's a good question because, all right, so. The question is, people get married, people get divorced, people get bankrupt. People, all sorts of things happen to them. And it's like, does that affect my estate plan? And that's the first question that, if Mike came in, I would look at his documents and say, no, it looks like you're good. But if his ex-wife is mentioned in there, if something else is, in play there, then maybe we need to, is she, for instance, is she on his powers of attorney? Is she named as a power of attorney or a healthcare agent? That doesn't just go away because they got divorced.
Right.
And that's what I would say to Mike if he comes in and says, okay, let's just take a look at this to see whether you need to do anything at all. Mm-hmm. Then we would talk about, how his current estate plan may be affected by what he's got other people doing for him.
So an estate plan, you make it at one point, and then it changes over the course of your life.
What we like to say it is that estate planning is not an event; it's a process. Particularly when you get older, because as you get older, if you lose, your health declines, you lose function. People, like I said, you have an incapacitated spouse. Often the impulse there is for, okay, my husband's got Alzheimer's disease. I want to make sure I don't want to leave anything him if I die. I'll just leave it to my kids. But that's not a good plan either, because the kids are going to get it and take care of daddy? Maybe. But the more likely scenario is that when mom dies first, the way they hold their assets, it's all going to go to dad anyway. So the will isn't even going to come into play, and we see that a lot. I probably see that 3 or 4 times a year where, clients come in to see me and they've got documents that have been done by, other lawyers who don't practice in this area, and they're, and they don't really know that's there are better ways to do it.
It's always interesting about wills, and I want to talk about that a little more. But let's go now to Nancy. Hello, Nancy.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi, okay. My question is, okay, my brother passed away 3 months ago with cancer, which he left humongous amount of doctor bills. Now, my question is his kids responsible for those doctor and hospital bills?
No.
No.
Pardon me?
No.
Oh, so they don't have to pay those?
No, they don't have to pay those. Now, who would have to pay them? His estate. He would be liable for them. If he was married at his death, then a spouse is potentially liable for the spouse's necessities. But we don't have, the concept there is called filial responsibility, F-I-L-I-A-L. So those people who, want to Google on filial responsibility, that children are not liable for the care of their parents. And that includes their debts, their medical care. Now, there are some states that are they're thinking about that because they don't like the money going to the kids. Okay, you got old people over here, and they give their money to their kids, and then they go into the nursing home and they say, I don't have any money and I gave my kids this money 10 years ago. And the state goes, no, you think your children should pay for that. You know,
Wow.
and so that's the whole concept of what's called filial responsibility. You know, and of course it's sort of fraught with, when you start thinking about it, is that, well, what about my brother who lives in Guam?
Right. No, that seems very difficult.
Yeah.
Now, what she may also be asking, and where you may have a different answer, is, all right, so the children aren't responsible, but he has an estate.
Right.
She may think the children are going to get that estate, get the money,
exactly,
get money from his stocks.
At first, he has to, you know, he's responsible for paying his debt, so that would then fall on his estate.
And the kids won't.
And the kids are not going to get it after the bills are paid. You know, it could be what's called an insolvent estate, which basically means if he had a $100,000 estate and $200,000 in medical bills, insolvent. You know, the creditors get $100,000 and that's it.
And what if he had a house? That
would be subject to a claim.
So they would sell the house.
Sell the house. Yeah, that's just part of his bills that he left when he left this earth. He owed money to people and he needs to pay up. You know, and his creditors come first. Mm-hmm. You know, is the way that works. And you know, if the children are going, but you know, I had a joint account with Daddy. You know, isn't that my money? It's like, well, maybe not.
And how difficult? How many pitfalls are there in this area? This is one of the big areas.
Yeah, that is. Yeah, because we've talked about several of them already. Is that you think we're going to do some planning now, and we don't want to pay a lawyer to do this planning, so we're going to make sure that when if mom dies before Daddy, who's got Alzheimer's disease, we're gonna set up the estate so everything goes to the children. And they're going to take care of Daddy. Well, maybe that'll work. But then what they don't realize is that when Daddy's in the nursing home and the state goes, well, what happened to his money? Well, Mama disinherited Daddy. It's like, well, you can't disinherit a spouse. And that's why I see even lawyers that they'll make out a will that disinherits a spouse. And it's like, did you go to law school? Did you really think this was going to work?
So that didn't work.
Because my husband he'll never, he can choose to be disinherited. A spouse can choose to be disinherited unless they are seeking public benefits. Then the state could say, no, we're not going to let you do that. And if you don't accept this money that your spouse should have left you, then that's a transfer. And then you have a 5-year look-back period.
Wow. So
you see how that works.
Oh, yeah.
And people don't, even lawyers that should know better, or not necessarily know better, but they don't plan in this area. They think, well, I guess that's what we'll have to do. How
aggressive are creditors in that regard, whether it's hospital or nursing home, the government, to go back and recoup that money? Are they more than they used to be, less aggressive than they used to be?
I really wouldn't know, because that's not really in my area, because we're not going to do that.
Right.
I guess we could probably have somebody that call in and say, well, this is what happened. Don't give us your name, because we know, but at the same time, some creditors, they have to. It's an economic decision for them. How aggressively are they going to chase after $900? $9,000, $90,000, maybe. You don't know. But that's just and as you probably know, that there's a whole area of the bar, lawyers that do creditor and collection work.
Right.
So that's not so it's an important part of legal work.
All right, we're going to take a break. If you want to call in, there is the number, 615-737-PLUS, 615-737-7587. Any questions about wills, setting up a trust, saving to cover the cost of nursing home care? We want to hear your story. So be back right after this.